Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my series of albums that shaped me. This would be episode 3, and I'm kind of doing a branch off mini series within the series with these last 2 episodes. Again, the first album that I talked about was The Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1. And then obviously the episode before that, after that, was Oh Mercy by Bob Dylan. So I'm going to stick to a Wilburys theme and continue with, how the branching out of my Traveling Wilburys, like why the members of the Traveling Wilburys affected my musical taste so much. So this is probably going to be the one of the earliest records that I remember ever listening to, uh, as a little kid. And the record I'm talking about is, sorry for the glare, the Beatles One record, which came out in 2000. And I know it is still ranked as one of the highest selling albums of all time. Um, I mean, there were lots of Beatles comps out there. I mean, the earliest, well, some of the earliest, were the red and the blue compilations that came out, what, in the 70s. Again, even when the Beatles were together, there were compilations. A lot of the American albums, obviously crossed tracks with the UK albums, and you had like the rock and roll music compilation that came out, things like that. So a Beatles comp was nothing new in the year 2000, and of course by this point, the Beatles had been broken up as a band for 30 years, since 1970. So um, this is an album, Beatles One. This is an album that I remember my family owning on cassette tape, and I believe it was one of the earliest albums that I wanted from the store. Again, in 2000, uh, I would have been 5, 6 years old. So, I was realizing like, oh, this is something that I want. Like marketing was working on me to get this album. So we went to the store. I don't know, and probably it was probably Walmart based on where I lived as a little kid. Walmart was the main retailer, so I think we went to Walmart and got the cassette tape, and we just had it in the car all the time playing. These are the number one songs, U.S. and U.K. So I mean, you had the early stuff like "Love Me Do," "For Me to You," "She Loves You," um, "Hard Day's Night," and then you kind of skip ahead to the mid. Beatles with "Help," "Day Tripper," "We Can Work It Out," "Paperback Writer," "Yellow Submarine," and then it goes into "All You Need Is Love," "Lady Madonna," "Hey Jude," "Get Back," "Ballad of John and Yoko." I mean, it ends with "Let It Be" and "The Long and Winding Road." So it covers the whole gamut of the Beatles' career. Collects singles that weren't on albums. It collects album cuts, and I mean you all know this album, so just it was just a massive one. So I remember listening to these songs. I remember really at an early age really loving the song "We Can Work It Out," which is very funny because my musical taste now is kind of more in line with a song like "We Can Work It Out" than a song like um, "All You Need Is Love," or um, you know something like that, or uh, "Lady Madonna." Um, so I was, kind of drawn to that acoustic sound at a younger age. Even though, at that age, I was listening to like, NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, and I had a couple of their, like greatest hits that people had given me and things like that. So I was listening to that stuff and singing along, and I had a little Fisher Price recording, thing that you could put a blank cassette in and sing right into the microphone. And so I would sing, songs like that. I would sing John Denver songs. I think there were a couple of Elvis songs. Like I know "All Shook Up" was one that I would sing a lot. At 5 years old, and I don't remember ever doing a Beatles song, but I do remember, um, again, as a jumping board, a springboard from this album, you know, fast, flash forwarding till the time I was in 7th grade, starting to take guitar, 7th or 8th grade. Just before I would get into the Beatles main catalog, which I'll get into in another episode. But I remember getting a guitar book and realizing how comprehensive and how difficult playing Beatles songs is on guitar, because the Beatles were of that generation that were learning their guitar chords by listening to the radio. So if they heard a chord and they thought it sounded good, the way that they fingered the fretboard with figuring out the chords, that's how they would play the chord. And so Beatles chords are just, if anybody that plays guitar understands how in depth the Beatles went. Even easy songs like Ticket to Ride. Well, seemingly simple songs like those early pop songs, Ticket to Ride, Hard Day's Night. The initial chord on a Hard Day's Night, I didn't understand for years. But I remember in that book, one of the easiest songs to play, an actual 3-chord song, was Yellow Submarine. And so, of course, I would play Yellow Submarine as a beginning guitarist, and feeling like I could have a Beatles song under my belt, because it was only like a G, C, and a D, and an E minor guitar chord. But yeah, this album, again, it was on cassette in my car all the time. The CD came along later on in life. Like this is, oh, I've probably had this for, I don't know, 12 years, something like that, 10 or 12 years. Um, this is, yeah, like I said, originally I had it on cassette. I don't know where that cassette is, but I was, really drawn to this album. And I remember, again, with the whole marketing thing, I remember this being advertised on TV. Like I remember seeing that yellow one come across the TV, and I remember seeing it on the shelves as a 5-year-old and just being fascinated by it. Yeah, so this is a shorter episode, but I wanted to kind of talk about my introduction to the Beatles. This was it right here. This compilation, all of those songs, those are the Beatles songs I knew. The songs that played on the radio that were from this, like Get Back, Let It Be, Day Tripper, Yellow Submarine, stuff that you hear on the oldie stations now. I remember being able to follow along to those songs because of this album. But this will not be the end of my Beatles journey on this series. I know for sure one other episode Beatles related that I'm going to do. Maybe 2, depending on, conjuring up a story or 2. Or if I'm forgetting something in my past that would connect it to a Beatles album. But yeah, let me know what you think about this album. I know a lot of you all remember this when it came out, because you were original Beatles fans, and this was a neat compilation to have that collected all those US and UK number ones. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the stories. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Everybody be good. Take care. Subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you. Bye now.